Trigger warning. Child abuse and sexual assault are discussed but not described in this episode.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Comically Exposed. We are on episode 29. I am one of the hosts. My name is Gabbie Blackman, and the amazing co-host is...
Heather and I.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yay.
Today is a really special episode for many reasons. One, you're listening to it, and you're a very special person, and we love you. But two, because my mom is on the episode, and her name is Jeannie Mecorney, and I happen to love her very much. And also, she's very interesting, and not to brag, she has mental stuffs too. Mom, welcome to the pod. Do you want to say something?
I'm so happy and honored to be here. This is wonderful. I love your podcast. I tell everybody. Of course, I'm your mom.
You say that, but I don't think... I think you are an incredibly supportive parent, and I do very much appreciate that. And I also want to point out that that is not always the case, you know?
Mm-hmm. Oh, the parents aren't supportive.
No.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Which we can get into as well, because maybe we'll talk about your parents and how you grew up, Mom.
Yeah,
oh, interesting.
Yeah. Do you want to introduce your mom in terms of like what she does and
Nah. All she is my mom.
That's
all
it.
you need to
That's
know.
It. That's the whole reason.
No. I probably should have brought up your bio, so I'm just going to wing it. My mom, Jeannie Mecorney, is brilliant, creative, so talented as an artist, and has been my whole life, so I assume her whole life as well. Some of the things that she's done is she created a character, Dee Dee, who was sort of an alter ego. We can get into that, but she made a ton of like comics and greeting cards all throughout the 80s, and I think a bit into the 70s and even the 90s. And now she does something called Chicken Scratch, which I highly recommend everybody check out on Instagram. To me, it's this interesting amalgam of your incredibly deep understanding of art history, as well as like the current zeitgeist, as well as politics, as well as whatever is excuse me, just making you giggle at the moment. And I remember when you came up with Chicken Scratch, you just said that you wanted to do more things that bring you joy, and drawing chickens brings you joy, which I really love. You've been a graphic designer. You've been a professor. You've been... What else? What am I missing?
Sometimes that I worked in television. In educational TV, which was a blast. But yeah, definitely graphic design, putting the old roof over the head and food on the table kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that was a large part of it. But I definitely, from a very young age, wanted to draw. And I had this thought as a child that I would work for Disney and make a ton of money. And then I grew up and realized he paid his people, his animators and cartoonists, like 20 cents an hour. So it wasn't probably going to be something that would happen. And it is a little bit more difficult to have that job as an artist, but as a graphic designer, you can do that. So that's what I did. I worked for colleges and nonprofits, and that was actually. It's been very recently that I finally told myself that I actually did work as an artist my whole life, which. I never really thought that I did that. I thought that I don't know. I thought that I worked in a cubicle. I don't know what I thought. Um, or, I don't know, as a secretary or something, but I didn't. I did work in art, and that's been really helpful to me as an adult, and as an adult who, well, I retired in 2010, and that's when I decided to take back the blank piece of paper for myself instead of for clients or for students, which I loved both of those things. But it's been really wonderful being able to take that blank piece of paper and do what I want with it, which right now is chickens and the advice from chickens. And that's just been a really wonderful thing to connect to my little 5-year-old self. That now I'm doing comics. And thank goodness for retirement, because I'm able to have a roof over my head and not have to sell them that much. So it's been a really great experience. So that's my happiness.
End of
Yes,
pod.
Yeah.
That's it. We did it.
We
Bye.
solved
Everybody's
everything.
happy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bye.
We did it. I also forgot, as did you wrote a graphic memoir about your childhood.
I'm actually
Yeah.
just finishing it, or hoping to finish it. I've gotten to a glitch and haven't quite resolved the glitch that I am currently in. After retirement, I could have an opportunity to look at my childhood, which is something that I've just kind of put away throughout my life. And I got into some deep therapy, and also became a member of a 12-step program, which is called ACA. Oh my gosh. Why am I blanking? Adult. That's the thing that I was blanking on, oddly enough, because now I've gone back into my childhood. Yes. Adult children of alcoholics and other dysfunctional families. Mine was the other dysfunctional family. And that has been a wonderful experience for me, to be able to look at what happened in my childhood, and growing up with a father that was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia in the 1950s, and a mom that was pretty codependent, and felt that she could save him. And so that is something that has been passed down. I'm not sure if either one of you have heard of generational trauma, but it's an actual thing.
Certainly
It's a
not.
thing. Yeah, and the coping skills that you create as a child when you go through trauma, and that you use those as an adult and pass them on to your own children. So that is a part of my graphic memoir that I'm in right now, and resolving that. I do have 120 plus pages done, and it's all about the trauma that I experienced as a child. I'm one of 4 siblings, and we each played a role, a typical role of the 4 children, of a hero, a scapegoat, a clown, and a silent child. And oddly enough, and probably can't tell, I was the clown. I was the one that would smile like this to make my dad feel better, and tell jokes and that kind of thing. So So I learned. I've just been reading this really great book. Actually, it's I forget now the name of it, but I hopefully in the show notes we'll be able to put it in there. I know it's by David Watkins, who's a psychologist, and it's he talks about the 4 F's, which is fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, and we all do that. We all go through certain traumas, and even if it's, I mean, life isn't a smooth thing. Everybody has issues that they have to deal with, and you can end up becoming stuck in one of those. His premise is that there is complex PTSD that so many people have gone through, and he contends that if we worked hard at dealing with complex PTSD, the DSM, the Diagnostic mental ills, would become a pamphlet if we could just deal with the complex PTSD, because all of that happens when you're a baby and when you're a child, and it just gets stuck in there. So that's been an interesting thing to read about and look at in terms of my own family and the way that I learned to cope as an adult. So
when you were describing your childhood and everybody's role, to kind of roll back a little bit, you were designating, the silent one, the clown, and was that based off of like those personality traits? Was that based in like a book, or like in I'm just saying, like, in terms of roles, like, is this pretty predictable in families that have this type of trauma?
yeah, I think so. I come across it in a lot of readings and a lot of different therapies, and I think what it's trying to do is describe the coping skills, and in the 12-step program that I'm part of, an adult child is somebody who uses the strategies to survive as a child in their adult life, and it no longer is necessary to do it that way, but that is how we behaved and how we survived, because when you're a baby, I mean, you have no defenses. You also have very few ways of communicating, and most of it is screaming, which is hard for parents to deal with. And many parents deal with a crying child in ways that the child feels abandoned or harmed or frightened or whatever. And this just seems like, as a society, we've moved so far away from community and everybody helping in terms of raising children, to being that nuclear family, and that whatever happens within a home is nobody else's business. And so we end up with shame and not letting on to other people what's going on. And I often say, if just one person had told me that what was going on was not normal and was not a good thing, and that I was going to survive it or whatever. I mean, they didn't have to fix it. Just tell me that it was crazy. That would have helped a whole lot, because I grew up so confused in terms of what was real. I've talked with other people that have had parents that were diagnosed with schizophrenia, and this one person and I were laughing about, well, one thing that's really good about it is, anything's possible. I mean, aliens could be talking to you at any moment. I mean, that's possible. Sure. So, and then that's a
Mhm.
coping skill. Is humor is a coping skill and a distraction and dissociation. So it's just my reason for putting my memoir together is in hopes that people understand more about how children learn. And I remember
Mhm.
talking to my mom, and I would ask her about something that happened, and she'd say, "Oh, wow, I didn't realize you would remember that." Well, it's like we remember, I think we remember in our grandmother, in our grandmother's ovaries, we remember stuff. As what we're finding out now. So yes, I would remember it, but it's pre-verbal or whatever all of that is, and that makes it difficult for children
Mhm.
to cope. And I just would like to get away from the don't talk, don't tell, and to have resources for children. And that's what I'm hoping my book um, will be able to do in describing um, trauma in children and some of the things that we need to do to make it better for people. And it's so
Mm.
much better now than it was in the 50s and 60s. I mean, that was a very time, a very special time.
Yeah.
I, for one, don't go back to the good old days.
I don't. I feel like, unfortunately, a bunch of people in
Yeah,
our country do. Um,
yes.
but anyway, I did want to just say, and we can erase this part from the pod, but your childhood mom was very violent, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Because you did talk about your dad being diagnosed with schizophrenia, and you've told me this, that most schizophrenics are not
Mhm.
violent people,
Mhm.
but your father happened to be wildly abusive of your mom and you and your
Mhm.
siblings, right?
Yes. Yes. And it's that is actually the journey through drawing my childhood has made me be able to separate schizophrenia from my dad's behavior. I mean, yes, the paranoid
Mm.
thoughts and the fact that he had to cover the television because he was certain someone was watching him, which, as it turns out today, could very well be. But um,
Yeah.
back then, we didn't have the technology. Um, so that's been very important to me because I just grew up absolutely afraid of schizophrenia. I mean, I couldn't even spell it. As I was doing my memoir, I couldn't spell it. I'd have to look it up every single time.
Mm.
And and in talking with my siblings, which I'm really lucky. My three siblings and I have a really we have a really good relationship, and nobody turned on anybody, which is really wonderful. And in talking with my sister, I was talking to her about the memoir and some of the things from our past, and she said, "You know what, Jeannie? If Dad hadn't been paranoid schizophrenic, he would have been an asshole anyway." So that was, I mean, and
Mm.
it's true. And in my work with my therapist, every once in a while she'll say, that's kind of like patriarchy and some of the bad parts about toxic masculinity. And because he was very violent with my mom, um, and my older siblings. And our life really revolved around his moods. And I could tell when he would come home, when he was still working, when he would come home, I could tell from a look on his face what kind of night that
Mhm.
was going to be. And it's a lot of I've heard other people say that people who grew up like this have really long antenna, but it's really true. I go into a room and I know
Mm.
exactly how many people are there, who looks nice and who looks like someone I wouldn't want to get close, whatever. The whole thing is just in there so that I can be safe. Those kinds of
Mhm.
things that
Mhm.
it's important to let go of so you can live your life as an adult. And so all of these, the adult children 12 step and therapy has been really good. And I did a lot of research into adverse childhood experiences, which California had well, it still has a Surgeon General, which is not necessarily in all of the states, but we do. And the first one
Mhm.
was somebody that did a TED talk, and that's what really started me on looking at my childhood
Mm.
was the fact that she is a real advocate for adverse childhood experiences that children go through, and that it's important for caregivers, especially pediatricians, because that's usually the first place that a baby sees, that there's a questionnaire to ask parents, what the home life is like, which is tricky. It's so tricky because we have this myth that
Mhm.
it's, and this belief that it's nobody's business what's happening in somebody's family. And that's just not, not conducive to healthy children, I don't think. So,
Yeah, I think it's hard when, people try to form things into boxes
mhm,
because from one perspective, like, things could be fine and people could be overreacting about the
mhm,
situation,
mhm,
you know, um, versus not reacting enough, and only reacting when something horrible happens
mhm,
to somebody.
mhm,
It's That's a very tricky thing with, like child protective services and, other things like that, I still don't think we have it
mhm.
right in this country.
We don't. And
Mm.
I think the key is, as much as possible, removing shame. The shame of how people are, having a hard time, or they may be expressing symptoms of a mental illness, and then the family is so they don't want to talk about it, or they don't want to deal with it, or however they're dealing with issues like that, that we have so much shame. I
Mhm.
mean, if I, it's the homeless situation where people have are we shame people for not being housed, which is it's crazy. It's just crazy,
It is.
and it's not a I don't know. I wish at this point our biggest problem was dealing with homelessness, but right now it's like we're dealing with, oh my goodness, our attention is away from moving forward because we're just trying not to slip into the past, and or slip
Mhm.
into some horrifying reality of the government at this point. And what I would love is that we spent our time and efforts dealing with shame and helping people and providing resources, which I know there are so many more now. And things have changed so much. I mean, my mother told me that the psychiatrist, my father's psychiatrist at the mental hospital that he was in and out of, said, because she was worried about the kids. She said, this is probably not a good thing for the kids to be seeing this kind of thing. And he said, oh, don't worry about it. Children are resilient. They'll be fine. Let's just worry about your husband. So,
Okay. First of all, nailed it. That guy nailed it. Second of fucking all, didn't he also blame Grandma Jane?
Well, that was also the time where mothers were blamed. Cold mothers were blamed for schizophrenia.
Oh God.
Yeah, so his mother was blamed, but then also I think you told me that Grandma Jane was told
a cold wife. Yes, cold wife.
A cold wife. I think they told her to stop making him angry, which was also useful advice. And not to.
That's so terrible. I'm laughing because it's terrible.
Yes. No.
It's terrible.
It's awful. Yeah, it's banana boats. And not to bring it serious again, but to throw the Lafayette PD under the bus. But Grandma Jane called the cops, and I think maybe some of your older siblings called the cops a couple of times, and the cops used to bring your mom and you and your siblings back to him.
Oh, geez.
On multiple occasions.
Well, they would.
Yeah.
And I do have a picture of this in my memoir. I was looking out my bedroom window, and the cops were taking him away because he had been so violent. And I was so confused because I thought, oh, great, now we're going to have a peaceful house. And at the same time, he was my dad. So, I saw these people put him in handcuffs and take him, that pushing the head down to get them in the back kind of thing.
Yeah.
And every time I see that on a cop show or whatever, it brings back those memories of seeing him being put in the back of it. But he would always come back. I don't know if you want to take this part out of the podcast or not, but my father was sexually abusive with all of us because his own desires were the most important thing. And he
So not to bring it back to me, but but I grew up with a very healthy fear of cops. And I didn't mean to gloss over anything, Mom, if you want to continue on that. But I just want to say, so we grew up with a very healthy fear of the cops, and it has taken until you let Miriam and I, my sister, read your graphic memoir. And I am so grateful that you are a parent who has decided to go to therapy, and you are a parent that really wanted to have very open communication with us and really wanted to make things better, because again, that's not something that everybody necessarily gets from their parents. And so some of the things that were unpacked were like, well, why as a white family in America did we grow up being like, you don't let the cops into your house, you don't talk to the cops, you follow the rules so that you don't have to deal with the cops in any way, shape, or form. And it's like, oh, right. That's why, because when they get involved, things get worse, which I know is a unfortunately normal experience for a lot of people in America. I would say everybody of my generation in your side of the family, all of our cousins, my cousins and my sister and I, depression, anxiety, pretty much every single one of us. And it's that generational trauma. And I do think that you and your siblings went out of your way to try and make all of us have very good childhoods. That side of the family is hilarious, by the way. I don't know if it's coming across in this podcast, but hilarious, because humor was used as a way to digest the world and its horrors and its joys, and to talk about things or not talk about things. And I definitely had a point when I started talking, but
Was it the police?
yeah.
Is where you started.
Yeah, ACAB. Anyway, well, I just wanted to say, like, we can definitely talk more about this, your childhood in particular. I'm also very interested in talking about how it's affected your mental health
Mm-hmm.
and what your journey has been. And I'm also interested in your sort of creative journey, process, projects, all of that jazz. And then Heather, I don't know if you have ideas. I don't know. I feel like I'm monopolizing this particular podcast.
You're not at all.
Yeah, I feel it's really important to give a background of my childhood, but as I'm describing it, it's like, oh God, I'm bringing everybody down. And
yeah, so sorry that your incredibly rough childhood is bringing the room down. No, this is not how this podcast works. We talk about what we talk about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I would like to say is that it is different today. There are so many good things that have happened with the treatment of mentally health ill people, but it's it's certainly not good enough. But I would like to say an experience that I recently had walking the dog as I passed a house near my house. And there was a man who came out from the backyard and he was in a rage and he was just screaming. And I think he was screaming at his wife, but I, didn't see the other person. And it just made me stop in my tracks across the street. And what was going through my head is I have to be here because I don't want anything to happen to the other person, and yet I didn't even know who the other person was or what the real story was. But he was just in an absolute rage, trying to kick the front door open because it was locked. And I just, there was a woman came out of a house behind me, and she said, "Oh, those two are always going at it," or something like that. And I turned around and I said, "That is my childhood." And it was really a good feeling because her face changed, and she, changed from making fun of this to a little bit more understanding. And another man had driven up to the house and was out talking to the guy, and they were talking back and forth. So I was thinking, okay, all right, so maybe I don't have to be here. And I turned to the woman behind me and I said, wow, I wish there was a neighbor like that when I was growing up. Another great thing to think about, that things are getting better. Then I decided that, I could leave and continue my walk. And I just wish that I knew what to do. Well, in the subsequent days, I thought about it and talked about it with people, and I called our local police and I explained the situation. The sergeant was so kind. It was like a shock to me. So kind and so understanding. And he said, well, there's not much I can do right now. However, if anything like that happens again, call the non-emergency number and tell us that a wellness check needs to happen, and we will send somebody out.
Wow.
that just to check on people, in that way of not going in with guns blaring. So I'm really happy about that. I'm so happy about the federal 988 number, which is
Mhm.
a great number. We just need to fund it so that we get people to respond that have the background and knowledge of what to do. So things are getting better. So I just didn't want to leave on this terrible. Oh my God, things are. So things are better, not the way they should be, and
I just love that you have to take care of everybody on the
exactly.
podcast too.
Exactly what I was thinking too. Yes.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I have to tell you, I have this other group of comics that are like all over the country and the world and whatever, that are just all really good friends. And so I read this one comic from somebody that was a sequential full page comic. And it was about this little kid that went outside and it started raining. And so he thought he had to lie down on the grass to keep the grass dry. And it was like, oh my God, I didn't know other people felt like that. So anyway, and of course it ended with a hysterical, comic ending. But the thing is, it was like describing this child as someone who needed to take care of the grass because the poor grass was going to get wet. Oh my goodness. There's
Okay.
Yes.
First of all, I love that as an explanation. But second of all, when you lived with Miriam in Pacifica, you guys were looking out on a storm, which happens a lot in Pacifica because it's right on the ocean. And you said to Miriam, as you guys are watching the rain come down, oh, sometimes I feel so bad for the bushes out there. I just want to take a blanket and put it over the shrubs. And Miriam said that she looked at you and was just like,
What?
this is what's supposed to happen to the shrubs. Like, what are you talking about?
Well, it was particularly cold.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wait, did you say it was particularly
No,
cold, or you
it
were
was
particularly cold, so you were going to go take care of other
It
things?
wasn't
Yeah,
a
okay.
gentle rain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And as we all know, shrubs need wool blankets.
Yes, yeah. If you see a house, with a bunch of bushes with scarves and sweaters on,
Yeah.
Good people.
Exactly.
you definitely know whose
You'll
house
know
it
which
is.
house
Good
is in
people.
front of. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And I think even Miriam was like, that's not going to help the plant. Like, that's not what the plant wants.
Okay, well, this is what's so wonderful about having two children is you guys will turn to me and go, "What?" And then I go, "Oh yeah, that is kind of crazy." And then, so yeah. That's that fawning. That's definitely a fawn
Mhm.
reaction to things.
Yeah. Have you heard of the other F, which is flock?
Oh, isn't that a positive one though? Or is it not?
Kind of, but it's like going to find like others to be safe kind of thing. So yeah, I can see how it would feel safe, or positive, but I also, it's kind of like, and again, not to go back to your childhood, but when your dad would take a nap and then you and your siblings would all silently just look at each other and know that it was time to pack a few things, grab all of the pets in the house, and quietly get into the car so that your mom could not turn on the engine and let it go down to the end of the street and then turn on the engine so that you guys could get away.
Yeah.
Trying to find safety and
Yeah. Well, actually, they all have some positive because I mean, if somebody is abusing you, fight is good if you can do that, you know?
I mean, it's all survival techniques, right? That don't, that may serve you or may just serve you in the moment, and yeah,
Yeah.
whatever else. No, I was going to say that one of the generational things that Miriam and I were taught was to not ask for what you want,
Oh.
and instead try and read the other person, and to just work, or other people, and to work with trying to figure out what they want without them having to say anything. Because in our family, we're all doing it so often that it's like my needs and wants get met because somebody else is putting out their antenna and is picking up on my like tiny tonal changes or whatever, so that most of my needs and wants get taken care of. Definitely not all, because we're not doing clear communication. And then it was interesting to like come in contact with others
Who take care of themselves.
i.e. the general public, who not only take care of themselves, they're just out here asking for what they want, not even what they need. They're just like on a whim. I feel like having this thing. You have it. Can I have it? And I would be like, oh, the food that's in my mouth? Yeah, I guess so. You can have it. I don't need that.
Oh my God. Yes. That is finding the person in the room who is most needy and helping that person. Yeah, absolutely. That became my way, or my way of living.
Well, yeah, it's a way of staying safe, to get back to the 4 or 5 F's.
Yeah.
And so what's been interesting in like you going to therapy and doing this amazing 12-step and the book, and just being, like I said, open to us having these kind of talks is me being able to be like, hey, what's up with this? Why is it that when somebody is just like, how's it going? I'm like, oh, do you need a kidney? You know what I mean? Why is that my next question?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's thank you for being open to my talking to you about the things that have affected you are due to my trauma and my way of going around the life, and that have limited you, or have been traumatic for you, because there was a relationship that I had when you were a teenager, and I think Miriam was an early teenager, for 4 years, with a man who was emotionally abusive. And I cannot believe that I did that. And the times that we've been able to talk about it have been so helpful, I guess. And the fact that you'll talk about it, it is really important to me. I know one time you asked me if I'd talked to my mom, Grandma Jane, about some of the stuff that went on. And I said, I didn't bring it up. I forget. It was something specific, but I said I didn't want to bring it up to her because I didn't want her to feel bad. And that is something that I just don't want my children to feel. I want you and your sister to talk about it and to tell me how it affected you, which I know it did affect you. And it was, I'm working with it, with especially my therapist, who is teasing it out as to, well, I just saw the most needy person in the room and decided I could fix him, like my mom tried to fix my dad. How could I be in that situation again? And I honestly kind of remember thinking that I would do this for my mom's sake, to let her know that this could be done and it wasn't a bad thing that she did. It's just, and it just gets into crazy stuff. And I hate it.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. No, you
Oh,
go.
sorry.
Because I tend to belittle.
It's okay. I would just say, like, I mean, obviously you did it because we repeat childhood patterns and you were trying to right the wrongs of your childhood and literally, you know, to maybe show your mom how she could have righted, that's a word, you know, how to save a man who is
Yes.
fucking broken.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
And that's
Yeah.
And then it felt like
And,
you're kind of punishing yourself too in a weird way, like, you know, that you're accepting that, you know, maybe this is like how I correct or how I don't know what. I mean, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but it just felt like when I was listening to it, it felt like you were kind of punishing yourself, especially because of things, you know, like, you know, that happened in the past that you can't change, but then you're still actively trying to change. Even right now, actually, I kind of feel it. Not that I'm a therapist or anything, but it's just, I don't know, I'm kind of sensitive to certain things. And so it just feels, yeah, it just feels like that you're punishing yourself in some way, which is, it's hard because I feel like you're opening a lot of doors for people that you love to accept themselves. But, you know, using your children, as you mentioned, as a mirror and them reflecting something that you were like, oh, I didn't realize I was doing that. You know, I don't know how you feel about that. Me saying this, I don't know. Now I feel like I want to backtrack a little bit, but it's just,
no. Thank you.
Yeah. Cause I think, I mean, cause I know Gabbie and she speaks very highly of you and
Note to people at home.
like a bad child, she rolls her eyes.
I'm like, don't tell her that I love her. Come on.
Don't take her off the hook.
I love. I can imagine like Gabbie showing up with all of her, like with all your siblings, and just like, and then she's sitting there and she just looks like she's thirsty, and then there's like 4 glasses of water appear, like,
and not just water, some lemonade, some soda.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Well, you have to have options. You have no idea what she wants or needs because we can't ask her. Yeah, exactly. I have always said that on our family crest, it should be like a drawing of somebody who's like actively taking the shirt off of their back to somebody who is actively refusing a shirt off of their back, who's already fully clothed with like a jacket and like, you know, sweatpants. It's like, yeah, and it's raining. Yeah. Yeah, 1,000%. But thank you for saying that, Heather. I agree. I mean, and Miriam is really good at, God, Miriam is so good at boundaries. And maybe she's not good at boundaries, but just for our family, we're like, holy shit, how did she do that? And all Miriam said is, yeah, exactly. And all Miriam said is, I don't think I want Brussels sprouts right now. And we're like, what?
Whoa.
You can do that?
You're setting a boundary.
Oh my God. We're like, write it down. How did you do that? But I do think that there's something to it of like, you know, we do tend to punish ourselves or I do. I'm not going to put words in your mouth. You know, and part of it I see as like my OCD recurrent thoughts of like, you know, oh, that embarrassing thing that I did 20 years ago that I'm sure everybody's still talking about. Or, you know, did I hurt that person's feelings? Because all I said was, how are you? I didn't say, how are you? And how is your mother's gangrene on her left toe? Like an asshole. I didn't say that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So do you feel like, yeah, sorry to interrupt, but do you feel like you punish yourself?
Gosh, that's interesting.
For things you can't change.
That's interesting because that's new, because what I'm dealing with my therapist is the shame of it. And how could I have done that? And she keeps, she takes notes, so she knows my childhood and says, well, let's just look at this one thing here. And but of course I respond with, yeah, well, that's not enough. I still shouldn't pass this on to I shouldn't, the word should gets in there. And so that it's interesting to think of that I'm punishing myself, because that's actually kind of helpful, because because I can get down on myself for making it about me.
Well, that's what I think we all can on this podcast.
Oh yeah.
So it's like punishing myself just feels like too self-indulgent. That and that probably is something to try to think about, why that's my reaction to it. And it may, that is something I want to think about. I just know that it's the shame of growing up in a shitty situation as a child, looking at it, and at that age in my 40s, that I didn't know better, that I didn't do better, that, obviously I hadn't gone through the kind of therapy that I've been doing. And it feels like a gift to be able to speak to my daughters. And they know that I don't want them to say, oh, it's okay. It was fine. It didn't bother me at all. That is not what I want. And I don't want it about me. I don't want them to say, "Oh, Mom, it's okay," because it wasn't okay. And I think that's the power, is to say it wasn't okay. And there isn't any way to go back and change it. It is, and so we deal with it. And I am available anytime you want to talk about it.
That's for you, Heather. So anytime you want to talk to my mom about it,
yes,
let her know.
Yes, Heather. Yes, absolutely.
I just love how the most not self-centered person is worried about being self-centered. That is always the case. It's like when you talk about self-care or self-compassion or other things that just have the word self in it, all of a sudden it just sounds indulgent. It just sounds like I need permission. I don't need permission to do this because I don't need it. I need to take care of everybody else. But sometimes you just got to take care of yourself too.
Well, yes. And it's that thing with the in the airplane, where you're told to put the oxygen on your face first before you deal with other people or children or whatever. And I remember hearing that after I had children, and I thought, oh my God, how am I going to do that? How am I going to put that on my, because that, and I immediately am seeing a picture of my child, trying to gasp for breath. And here I am.
Oh, good intrusive thought. Yeah, but
Mom.
Yeah, you can say it. You can say it.
Mom's luxuriating in the oxygen as she watches her children turn blue. It seems pretty par for the course with you, gotta say, Mom. Because it seems like your behavior anyway.
But
what were you gonna say, Heather?
Oh, well, I was gonna say putting the mask on yourself is helpful, because then you're not gonna pass out. To be able to help others.
Yeah, exactly. And then both kids die because you didn't take care of yourself. I know. I was talking to somebody from the summer camp that I worked at, somebody older than me who had 2 kids, right? And I remember we were just like sitting out sunning someplace, and one of the kids was still like a tiny toddler or something like that, and one was a slightly older kid. And she was like, just out of the blue, she said, I've thought about if there's like a tidal wave or a tsunami. We're in Yosemite, by the way. There's no water coming in any. And she said, I've thought about it. I would grab the youngest and use my other hand to get us up for air. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, what's going to happen to your other kid? And she was like, well, the youngest is definitely not going to survive if I don't help that kid. And the older one has a chance. And I was like, fascinating. I think my mom would grab both of us and we would all drown. But I don't have that same feeling anymore. And this is not to gas you up or whatever. I do still think that you would sacrifice yourself for both of us in a heartbeat. And sometimes that worries me. But I also do see you putting your mask on so much more. Mm-hmm. And again, it's been great to see for me because it is like you are showing me that it's good to take up space and to, I don't know, breathe oxygen. Yeah. And the more, not to switch it to creativity, but the more that you pursue your creative stuff, the more it gives me, not necessarily permission, but it's just representation matters. You know, I see that this is somebody who is, like I said, really brilliant, who's fucking finally allowing herself to do the creative things that she wants to do and then put it out into the world. I've seen you, for people who are watching some of this, somehow we're going to post on YouTube or maybe some stills. There's a lot of pictures and photos and paintings that are behind my mom's head right now. And a lot of them are hers that she's done and then gotten printed on wood blocks or like chrome or aluminum chunks. And so I've watched you join like art shows and I've watched you try different mediums, and I've watched you not only write your graphic memoir, but go to mental health conferences and talk about it and advocate for, you know, children with negative childhood experiences. And it's been really incredible to watch. And I have to say all of that has been very deeply moving, but your chickens, more than anything else, Chicken Scratch has just made me only happy. Yeah, there it is. If you're listening, my mom is holding up a Chicken Scratch coaster, which is she draws herself in these comics, and she's got a chicken that also shows up, and the chicken she is obviously wearing as a hat, as one does, and it says 2 chicken hats pass each other on the street.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you, Gabbie. Thank you for that. Yeah, and I am just really enjoying now, having that white piece of paper for myself now. And the chicken is just so important to me because, as I say on my on the little zines that I do, that the chicken explains the world to me, and it has always been in my head. Hasn't always given me perhaps the correct interpretation, and those are the ones
chicken
into the comic are the chicken view of life, which is, you know, a little wacky, and it's been very cathartic to do it. and right now it's very political, because I just couldn't do the ones that I was doing before because they just seemed frivolous at the time. But I hope sometime to get back to them, after I make fun of everybody who's in charge right now of, gosh, our country and looks like the world, um, because it has helped me so much. I get comments when I post them that they really appreciate them. They appreciate the humor and to have a laugh during the day, which just makes me feel like it's worthwhile. And yeah, and so thank you for telling for letting me know that you value what I've been doing, and I just am. I'm your biggest fan, and absolutely support your hilarity, and I just love this podcast. And I've told people about it. I was at at a trauma conference, and the International OCD Foundation was behind a table, and I went up, "Hey," and I think I told you that I was talking to her about some of the things I was doing, and then I said, "My daughter does a podcast, and it's called Comically Exposed." She said, "What is it called?" And then she said, "I know that." And she said, "What is her name?" I said, "Gabbie Blackman." And she said, "And Heather, I know that boat." I know this person that's like, I don't know what position she has, but she definitely was important in the foundation, in the OCD Foundation. And so that was so wonderful to me. It was like you were there with me at the conference. It was just, it's like, this is what we have to do. We have to say something, and we have to do.
Yeah.
And we have to use our talents. And the two of you are hilarious, and you dig deep and help so much with struggles, that it's such a good thing to do. So much better than sending spacecraft into the air that explodes. I'm just gonna say it's a lot more worthwhile.
Okay, you say that, but Heather and I do have a spacecraft going up on Thursday next week.
And I'm bringing the chainsaw.
Yes. That's actually, yeah. That's how we're going to close the pod today, is just all of us. Honestly, it's great.
Yeah, it is hard to make art like during this time. I mean, I'm actually advocating making art, whether or not it's political or not, just to keep it up.
It's so important. It is so important.
Yeah.
It really is. And it's so helpful.
And I think it's one.
Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
And I do think it's one of those times where people are like, oh, it's got to be a great time for comedy. And it's like, no, it's not. It's only going to be a great time for comedy and art in spite of what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I don't know.
Also, I like chicken scratch, so I'm a big fan.
No,
I know that Gabbie said something, and then I was going to interrupt, but I was like, this is such a beautiful mother-daughter moment that I was.
Oh, gross.
Oh, gross.
Nobody wants to see those things.
Oh, how embarrassing. No, I do. I see your likes. I see your likes.
Now this is just a big love fest, because then my mom has said to me, "Oh my gosh, do you see that like Heather has liked my chicken scratches?" And I'm like, "Calm down."
I'm your daughter.
Yeah, exactly.
Forget Miriam.
Like,
forget Heather.
This guy. Yeah.
All Gabbie.
All Gabbie all the time. But yeah, and Heather and I have also just recently been talking about making a conscious effort to do more comedy and more creative things. Which, Heather,
and exposing it comically.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
How am I? We're asking me how I'm doing now.
Yeah. I meant to ask you at the top of the episode and then just skipped over it immediately.
Yeah. So what are you doing?
It's Jeannie's interview.
What are you doing now?
Yeah. So what's up? What's going on? Yeah. Hey, what's up? What are you doing?
I don't know what's going on. No, I've actually been, didn't realize I was going to talk about myself. I'll talk about it like this much and then be done. No, I just recently picked up an old script outline that I was working on a few years ago. And when I was driving back home yesterday, I came up with an idea. And so then I had to keep saying the idea in my head because I couldn't stop and write it down because I was on the freeway.
Yes.
And it was finally connecting the dots to things. So last night I wrote kind of like an idea kind of out with a bunch of like points of interest. And it felt like I was kind of blooming a script. So I'm really excited about it. I haven't talked about it on the pod before because actually I started kind of writing it before the podcast started. And then I just kind of remembered something and was kind of connecting dots. And so, yeah, so for some odd reason, I don't know, lately I've been feeling energized to write and tell stories. So yeah, we'll see what that turns into. How about you, Gabbie? No.
Okay, but
you have to talk about me.
That's so exciting. Yeah. That is so exciting,
Heather. Do you have people that you back and forth with scripts? You do. Oh, good.
Yes. Yeah, I do. Next to our usual Sunday sketch group, which is divulged into us just chatting about things and occasionally sharing writing. Shout out to Kelsey and Susan.
Hey.
And then there's other people that I've connected with from other pilot classes and sketch classes that occasionally they'll send me work that they're working on and they're like, hey, could you give me notes? And so I think now it's my turn to like poke them. And then once I get my pilot done, I could just start to send it out and get notes to see if this resonates. And yeah, but I'm actually excited about it because I feel, and I don't know if this is true for you, Jeannie, or Gabbie, is that when you're writing something that's semi-autobiographical, if it gets too close to reality, it starts to stop the process. Does that, for me at least, does that happen to either of you?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Because you're you, and you can go in like so many different directions. And then if you're so into it, or you cross over that line where you're just really into it, in a way of, I don't mean writing and, the flow and all that. I mean, you're physically and somatically kind of involved in this, that it's like, oh my God, what am I going to, wait, because it's suddenly turned on it's like you're in a mirror or it's turned on you. And then it brings up things like, not that even the specifics are embarrassing, but this is embarrassing in general because we've learned to be embarrassed when the attention is on us. So yeah, it's a fight. It's a good fight. It's a good fight. You fight it.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
So glad you have a group.
I
That's
also
great. Yeah.
Me too.
Me three. Yeah, I also think when it starts to get too close to your reality, then like all those options that you were saying before, Mom, of like there's so many ways it could go. It's like, well, am I just going to follow it the way I remember it? Because then it's just this one thing. And then for me, I would be like, well, wait, how much fiction is in this and how much reality do I want to get in this?
Yes.
And then you're off on your own little eddy of thoughts that are not necessarily helpful, and I think stifle the spark of joy, because then it feels to me like there's responsibility.
Yes. Yeah, that's the word
Right?
that I was looking for, is that responsibility to like the truth, to like others that you didn't want to expose, stuff like that. It starts to feel like, ooh, do I want to talk about that?
Yes, exactly. Holy shit. That's part of the reason that I haven't done stand-up, I think, is the responsibility to others that I want to talk about.
And that's your stand-up.
Yeah, exactly. That's interesting. I wonder if that's a struggle that a lot of artists come up against.
Yes. Yes. Especially ones who have tendencies to ruminate on whether they're they're qualified, whether they're all of that goes on.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, and whether there are people with let's just say overactive compassion.
Maybe. Yeah.
Some might say too empathetic. Some might say a lack of boundaries. A responsibility to everyone else's feelings in the room. Yeah, as opposed to artists who did not seem to have any problem taking advantage of people, right? Your Picassos, your Michelangelos, I guess we could just say male artist name here. Or famous one anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it was Picasso.
Which I'm sure there are female ones who did that too, or hopefully, there'll be some females taking it, non-binary people just taking others' work and calling it their own. May we all have a lack of shame.
Right. Exactly. So, Gabbie, what are you doing?
I know we all have a scoreboard in our head, and we're all trying to be like, wait, okay. And then Heather, did she talk enough about her stuff? And then Jeannie, did we get to all the things? And then now, okay, Gabbie, has she said? Cool. I would like to be doing more creative things. Heather and I have briefly talked about ways to maybe integrate that into the pod a little bit more, which is exciting. I definitely, there is something specific that I want to work on, which is I wrote this sketch about not necessarily online dating, but sexting. When you've matched with somebody on like some sort of, you haven't met in person, or maybe they had, I don't really remember. The whole point was like, oh, I know, it was two people who were like hooking up. And then it's late one night and the one person is at home watching TV and just eating junk food and just having a night. And then like their crush text messages them. How old am I? Text messages. And says like, hey, you up? And wants to send like sexy photos back and forth. Meanwhile, the woman at home is covered in crumbs and hasn't brushed her hair for several days or whatever it is. Anyway, the whole point is it was an amusing sketch and I didn't finish it. And I definitely thought that it could at least be a series of 3 different sketches, or that was the feedback I got from the group with Heather and Kelsey and Susan, who I love so much and I very much appreciate, that I would like to not only finish those 3 sketches, I would like to shoot them and I would like to play both parts.
Yeah.
I think that sounds
I
great.
want to be, I want to be handsome man and I want to be couch potato lady.
Absolutely.
You want it all.
Yeah. And then I want to put it up on the internet.
Yes, please.
Because I realized that somebody had asked me like, oh, you write sketch, you know, do you have any examples? And I sent them some stuff that was filmed from my last comedic partnership, who, as we all know, not my favorite. But we were productive. And so I was able to send them like a sketch or 2. And then they were like, oh, this is amazing. Can I put it on my Facebook group? And I was like, no, you cannot, because that was the agreement that my comedy partner and I made, was basically like, these are not going to see the light of day because our partnership doesn't exist anymore. And so, you know, that just gets into weird intellectual property or whatever. How are we going to split all the profits that are going to come rolling in? You know,
This was recent? This was recent?
What was
asking
recent?
to put your sketches on Facebook?
Yeah, that was a couple months ago. Somebody that I was seeing. Yeah. Somebody that I was seeing was a part of a Facebook group that was something like white women smugly doing embarrassing shit or something like that. And the sketch was, it's called White Woman Wellness, which is, we came up with. And it's about an insurance plan that just deals with white woman nonsense, you know, like crystals to, you know, help you knock that, infection right out of your face or whatever. It's like the appropriation of other healing modalities that are then warped into a live, laugh, love sort of framework. Yeah,
exactly.
Actually, that's a pretty good pitch. But anyway, so it's just like, it's a shame. I mean, it was cool because he said like this sketch would actually get a lot of traction on this Facebook group, and there's like a ton of people there, and it, like, you know, he said it had the potential to go viral, and I was just like, cool. 1, you can't promise that. 2, I don't trust your comedy instincts, dude. And 3, like, can't do it because of previous promises. But then it was like, why don't I have stuff other than like 30 seconds of Igor to share with people?
Yeah. You know, I really appreciate, and it's really fun when Gabbie and I talk, because I love to do comics, and Gabbie loves to be a comic. There's just this real crossover. And, you know, I was talking to you about, Heather, about having groups, you know, is so important. And there's this thing that my current group does every Friday night. It's a Friday night comics workshop, and they get a cartoonist to come and talk about their process, whatever, and then we do an exercise, kind of, you know, like a prompt kind of thing. Anyway, but this tonight is the name of it is applying improv principles to comics, and it's with Dana Jerry Mayer. Anyway, so I'm really looking forward to it, and I can send the link to both of you if you're interested in it. But it's just so interesting and fun, because sometimes I'll do a drawing of my chicken and I'll turn to my daughters and say, I don't know what this should say. And they just, boom, they just come up with it. And it's just been a real great collaborative thing. So I have that group too. I have my daughters, which I feel like I created them so that I would have this group.
Mm-hmm. Yes. You made the group, right. Literally.
And I drowned all the children that didn't have a sense of humor. They scared.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there were 10. There were 10. And now 2. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, Miriam's really good at that stuff. But I was gonna say, I love that group of yours, Mom, and I love the group that you have. You call yourselves the Crones.
Yeah. 3 other ladies are similar ages in our 60s and 70s. It's fabulous. Oh, we have such a good time, and it's all around comics also. And so it's so important to have your tribe, I think. It's so positive.
Yeah.
So positive.
Mm-hmm. And it's all online.
Yeah.
Too,
well, they've been,
cool.
Michigan and Vermont and Delaware. They're wherever. And they, give me a lot of grief about California, but that's okay. That's okay.
I was going to say they're in Delaware.
I know.
Mostly, I wake up in the morning and they've been talking since 4 a.m. because, of course, they're 3 hours later. And
oh, right. Their text chain starts.
So it's like I have to go back up the text, and then, I do a reply that doesn't really appear. And, anyway. Oh, time travel. Anyhow.
Yeah. Okay, well, that is a perfect place to end. Time travel.
I think we've covered it all.
I think we have. I just want to say thank you so much for coming on,
mm-hmm.
Mom.
You.
This has been great. I know we talked about a lot of rather heavy stuff, so I really appreciate you being so vulnerable with our audience and our AI overlords. I really am excited for the type of advertisements that you're going to get after this.
I'll let you know. Oh, well, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much. It's so great to talk to you two. It's, even if it wasn't recorded and turned into a podcast, it just is a lovely chat.
Oh,
and sorry for bringing everybody down.
No, do not say
yes, that. You should apologize. This is not the place for it, and we certainly didn't ask you very specific questions about it. You came in here, Heather and I were having a lovely time talking about our favorite president and his musky partner. And
you mean Mr. Putz?
You ruined it. That's right. My mom is scathing in her critique. Mr. Butts, you take that, Elon Musk, and you think about what you've done.
Actually, it's with a P.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Putz.
Oh, Mr. Putz. It's Yiddish. I forgot. Yiddish is so good. The onomatopoetic nature of that. Yeah. Anyway, Heather, I thought I'd allow you to talk at some point.
No, I like being kind of mute for a little while. This was purely entertaining for me as well. So my face now hurts because of all the laughter. I know, it's like my cheeks hurt a little bit. No, but I learned a lot about Gabbie's mom, and I do appreciate, or I should just call you Jeannie because you do have a name. But I do appreciate everything you've said, and was able to, because I do think it has nothing to do with whether or not something is high or low. I think it's important to talk about these things because there could be somebody out there and going, wait, that's weird. Gabbie and I talked about this, and I don't think it was ever on air, but we mentioned like when you realized you needed glasses, and you would see the world. Like when I was little, I didn't wear glasses, but I didn't know that nobody could see. Like I thought
Yes.
everybody couldn't see the whiteboard or the
Mhm.
chalkboard or whatever.
Mhm.
And I literally tried on my friend's glasses and went,
What?
everything has lines around it, And so it opened my eyes, my perspective. And I think talking about this stuff is important, even if somebody is not directly related to it, but they're like, wait, something's very similar in my situation, or what could I do? And I think that's what we try to bring to the table as well. Not just comedy, but also just a place of coming to acceptance, or even a place to find help, because we're not experts. We're just people floating around in our meatbag suits doing stuff that everybody does, So
Yeah,
that's all we can do.
it is all we can do, and help each other get those glasses on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And also put them glasses on yourself first.
Because then you can see the other people's glasses.
Yes. Then you're not accidentally groping while you're trying to help other people. Yeah. And so I want to say thank you, Mom. Thank you, Heather, for having my mom on the podcast. Thank you, audience, for listening to stuff. And I hope everybody has a really great day, including myself. I'm wishing myself a happy day first.
Good.
I don't mean it, but I'm saying it.
Yes.
So, yeah. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah,
thanks,
you.
Heather.
Thank you, Gabbie.
Thank you,
See you
Gabbie.
guys later.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yay.
Bye.
Bye. Welcome to the end of the show. This is Gabbie Blackman.
And this is Heather Nye.
Thank you for listening to Comically Exposed. We're just a little show with two creators who edit and produce each episode. We appreciate all your support.
If you like what you heard, please follow us on Instagram at comicallyexp.podcast. That's comicallyexp.podcast.
Oh, and check out our website at comicallyexposed.com. That's one word, comicallyexposed.com.
Where you can contact us by text or even leave a voice message.
Or subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Also, special thanks to Track Club and Goldenfinch for providing the music.
Thanks for listening. And hey, everybody, today is a great day to expose yourself. Okay, until next time.
In your face, Miriam.